Workplace exclusion is one of the most painful, confusing, and discouraging experiences a professional can go through. And if you've ever felt left out of a meeting, overlooked in group chats, or skipped over for important conversations, you know exactly how heavy it feels. What many people don't realize is that workplace exclusion isn't just uncomfortable, it has measurable effects on your brain, your performance, and your confidence. And the good news is that science gives us clear strategies for what to do next. Let's start with what workplace exclusion actually is. It's any experience where you're intentionally or unintentionally left out of information, opportunities, collaboration, or connection. Maybe decisions are being made without you. Maybe you're missing from email threads or recurring meetings. Or maybe your ideas are ignored until someone else repeats them. Research shows that even small moments of exclusion can activate the same neural pathways as physical pain. Studies from psychologist Kipling Williams found that the brain treats being ignored the same way it treats being burned or bruised. That means your brain reads exclusion as a threat to your safety, and that's why it hits so hard emotionally. So, why does exclusion happen? The science points to a few common reasons. The first is power dynamics. People tend to invite and include those they see as influential. If someone perceives you as having less authority or less decision making power, you may be unintentionally left out. It's not about your competence, it's about how organizations are structured. Research on upward voice shows that people lower in hierarchy are often excluded simply because leaders assume their input is less necessary. The second reason is unconscious bias and in group behavior. Humans naturally categorize others into similar and different. Studies show people include those they feel comfortable with and exclude those who feel unfamiliar. Women and underrepresented professionals experience this more often due to gender bias, affinity bias, and stereotypes about who leaders should be. A Harvard Business Review analysis found that women, in particular, are excluded from informal networks that are critical for visibility and advancement. The third reason is psychological threat. Sometimes people exclude others when they feel insecure or protective of their status. If your strengths, ideas, or visibility make someone uncomfortable, exclusion can become an unhealthy way they maintain control. Research on social comparison shows that when people feel threatened, they are more likely to withhold opportunities and information. And finally, exclusion happens because of poor communication habits. Leaders rely on old routines, fast conversations, hallway decisions, or side chats. When organizations move quickly, inclusion becomes optional instead of intentional. Now let's talk about what workplace exclusion does to you, because the effects are real, measurable, and backed by decades of research. Social neuroscience studies show that exclusion reduces cognitive flexibility, increases stress hormones, and heightens anxiety. It also decreases creativity and working memory, which means people who feel excluded literally cannot perform at their best. A study in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology found that excluded individuals perform worse on complex problem-solving tasks, not because they're less capable, but because exclusion disrupts the brain's ability to focus. On top of that, exclusion affects your leadership trajectory. When you're not in key rooms or conversations, you lose visibility. When you don't have visibility, you lose opportunities. Research from Leanan and McKinsey shows that exclusion is a major reason women are overlooked for promotions, stretch assignments, and strategic roles. So the question becomes, what can you do about workplace exclusion? And more importantly, what does the science say actually works? The first step is emotional regulation. Before responding, pause. Psychological research shows that when you regulate your nervous system, you think more clearly and communicate more effectively. Slow breathing, grounding techniques, or even a short walk can shift you out of fight or flight and into problem-solving mode. The second step is curiosity. Humans are wired to assume negative intent, a cognitive bias researchers call hostile attribution error. Instead of jumping to conclusions, lead with a fact-based question. This lowers defensiveness and opens communication. For example, you could say, "I noticed I wasn't included in the meeting about the project. Should I be part of that discussion going forward?" This statement is grounded in assertive communication research. It's clear. It's direct. and it focuses on future alignment instead of past frustration. The third step is to name the behavior with specificity. Research from conflict resolution psychology shows that using concrete examples prevents the other person from becoming defensive. Instead of saying, "You always leave me out," you might say, "I noticed the last two update emails didn't include me, and I want to make sure I stay aligned on next steps." Specifics reduce friction, generalizations create it. The fourth step is to reclaim your visibility using what researchers call upward influence. This means speaking to the value you bring while collaborating on a solution. You might say, "Given that I'm responsible for the clinical review, I want to make sure I'm included in discussions about timelines and next steps. How can we set up a process that includes me going forward?" This is the kind of communication that increases trust and credibility instead of tension. Fifth, build what I call receipts, documentation that protects your contributions and ensures you stay visible. Organizational psychology research shows that written summaries, follow ups, and role clarifications help prevent misattribution and reduce exclusion. Simple habits like sending a recap email after a meeting or confirming responsibilities in writing create clarity and accountability. Sixth, strengthen your support network. This is a protective factor backed by research from McKinsey, Gallup, and multiple belonging studies. People with strong workplace relationships experience less burnout, more confidence, and better performance, even when exclusion happens. Connecting with colleagues, joining professional groups, or finding mentors can buffer the emotional impact of exclusion and help you navigate challenges with more resilience. And finally, if exclusion becomes a pattern, consistent, deliberate, or harmful, research strongly supports escalating through proper channels, not as punishment, but as a necessary step to restore fairness, psychological safety, and organizational health. When escalating, present facts, examples, impact, and the solutions you're seeking. Let me give you a few real-world scripts to use. If you were left out of a meeting, say, "Hey, I saw the meeting happened earlier. Since I'm managing the clinical component, I want to make sure I'm included in future discussions. Could you add me to the invite list?" If an important email chain didn't include you, "I noticed I wasn't copied on the last email thread. Could you include me going forward so I have full context to support the team?" If your manager repeatedly excludes you, "I'd like to talk about communication flow. There have been a few decisions where I wasn't looped in, and it's affecting delivery. Can we outline when I need to be included?" And if you're not sure whether it was intentional, "I'm sure this was an oversight, but I noticed I wasn't included in the planning discussion. Can we sync on how I should be involved moving forward?" These phrases are short, grounded, neutral, and evidence-based. They help you protect your boundaries without escalating conflict. The truth is this: you deserve to be included. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to work in an environment where your voice matters. Workplace exclusion may be real, but so is your power to navigate it with clarity, confidence, and strength. And when you respond strategically instead of reactively, you not only protect your well being, you reinforce your leadership presence. If you want more evidence based strategies for communication, leadership, and confidence at work, make sure to follow along and download my free leadership workbook at The Power of Peacefulness.